Rare is it the case that I have a sales rep on the podcast that I know they understand the complex sale. They are also able to articulate it clearly and precisely and without me digging in. That's a rare skill. It's one thing to know it. It's another thing to do it. But to be able to articulate it is really hard because we become unconsciously competent. We know what to do, but we don't know how to do it. And this episode, I think you're really going to like. This rep has got 25 years of experience and is clearly able to articulate what works in large, complex sales. And it's a great conversation. And I really enjoyed this. I think you're going to enjoy it a lot. So no more intro. Let's get into the interview. I'll update everybody on the courses at the very end. They're just crushing it right now with the office hours. The people are really getting into it. The one-on-ones are becoming insanely effective. So if you're in the course, just go to the first chapter to schedule a one-on-one. Also, are you checking out CoVideo? Video emails cooking. You got to give it a shot. Go to covideo.com. Also, Pipedrive. Make sure you're checking out Pipedrive, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a salespreneur. It's got a calendar capabilities now where you can show people what times you're available. Also, connect up to your website for leads. It's got tons of integrations with all the other things you need, especially like email. Super powerful. Pipedrive.com. Brutal Truth coupon code will get you an extended eval. Let's get into the interview.
Hey, Hope, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Great. Thank you, Brian, for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity and looking forward to it. I've been in B2B sales in this business for over 25 years. I started my career at General Electric, and I got my start in enterprise sales very, very early as an early talent while still getting my degree. I was going down the solution consulting path and eventually wanted to be in sales like all of my mentors that I'd been working with. And I had some great leaders who took a chance on me even before I felt I was ready. And Bob Brooks and Julie Walker, if you're out there listening, thank you so much. And Bob knew that I would eventually figure this out. So even though I didn't feel I was ready, he knew I was. And one of the things that I was doing while I worked at GE, I was moonlighting as a rock star interviewer for a local TV show. So,
me too.
Bob knew that I was not going to have any kind of call reluctance whatsoever.
Yeah.
And he knew I wasn't going to be afraid to call on CEOs because they were really, I was not intimidated it was no big deal to me at the time because I'd been sitting next to folks like Tom Petty and LA Guns, interviewing them for a TV show. So it all worked out.
Wow. That's a pretty good, or certainly an interesting background. Now, how did you get into interviewing rock stars?
It was just kind of like the opportunity with you. I saw something posted and I said, hey, I'd love to do that. I saw it in the local newspaper. It was the local, rock magazine. They were calling for interviewers and I signed up and they hired me for free. I would have paid them to do it. Yeah. And that's how I got into it.
Who was the most famous person you interviewed?
My favorite was Tom Petty.
Tom Petty, yeah.
That was my favorite interview. Yeah.
And how'd you like sales once you got into it?
So I really found my calling. I got into it and I never got out. It's the only role I ever see myself in. Yeah. And for many years, I have performed in some sales leadership roles. I was a VP of sales at GE for a period of time. But I thrive on, being a direct salesperson. I thrive on becoming that person for our customer where we're bringing them success. So I really found my calling. I really love it. I love winning. I love helping others win, especially when I've been involved in the process. So I really love it.
And why did you decide to be more of a rep than a leader? Is it
after having tried both, and it's interesting because I have a mix of that now in my role because I need to work with others and lead them on some of my approaches. So I'm kind of doing a mix of both right now. I just really, I loved being the person that worked closest to the customer.
Yeah.
And I really feel like that individual contributor role suited me for that being the thing that I really love to do.
Cool. And how have you evolved as a salesperson?
Yeah, it's definitely been an evolution. I mean, I pick things up along the way. There's certain things throughout my career that I've always done and just did from the get-go. I guess they're just part of my DNA.
Yeah.
Things like taking a structured approach, for example. And it's just that so many things I learned along the way. I've probably learned more in the last 2 years about different things that I never knew in being in a matrixed organization that I am now, working my role. I've had to learn a lot and flex muscles I never had before. But once I finally figured out that I really just need to approach working with my peers in the same way, working with customers and leading them to their promised land, I've found and learned doing that same thing internally. It helps us all be successful.
Yeah, that matrix organization can be a little bit of a change, huh?
It has been a change after being a direct salesman. I talk about this every day with my peers, and they know. I mean, after being a direct salesperson for 25 years and then stepping into an overlay or a matrix role in an organization that's growing like this has had so many challenges that I never experienced before. But I'm learning. I'm getting through it.
Well, let's talk about that procedure. How did you come up with it? What does it look like?
The how to work best internally procedure?
No, in general.
Personal.
Your own personal sales procedure.
So my own personal sales procedure is, I really run sales like a business. I have a very structured plan and approach. I really make a plan every year and then execute it and stay with it and stick with it. I really take a look at the entire territory and I white space it. It's kind of the first thing I do. I look at what customers are already doing with us. I look at what else other value we could bring to them. I look at the total addressable market for every area I'm working on, and then I prioritize it. And I really stick to this plan. I mean, this is a long game. This is not a hit and run. And I create opportunity maybe there where it isn't obvious. It isn't just about low-hanging fruit. It's really about where can I create value and create opportunity in this white space for 2020, for example, this year.
Yeah. Now, how do you prioritize? Is it based off of time of closure? Is it based off of size, most likely to close?
I kind of start with it's a balance of most likely to close and size, knowing where I'm going to spend my time. So, there's definitely, you want to be able to get those wins in the meantime while you're working on the hard stuff.
Right.
So I'm really looking at that as well and taking a look at how just do I balance my time, my team, my resources? Because in sales, as you know, every minute counts and time is the currency. So it's really, really important to not waste it.
And do you structure your week in a certain pattern?
I could be better at that. No, I think of it, I tend to think of it maybe in bigger chunks. I kind of think of it in quarters.
Okay.
I also tend to think of it in months. So, certain things that we're going to do throughout the year, this particular quarter or this month, this is a campaign we're going to run. So I tend to think of it in a little bit bigger time frames. The week to week is an interesting thing to try to incorporate. Thank you for that. Yeah,
I mean, because I always tried to do the opposite of what the company did, because every company I was at, it was quarterly driven.
Yep.
So first quarter was, busy meetings, QBRs and stuff. I used it for prospecting. And then people didn't really get into the role until the second month. But then in the third month, it was panic time because you had to make the number.
Right. That's right.
Panic is not a good use of time, right? Because you're cutting the value of the deals. You're trying to shortcut it. You're doing things that you're going to then have to clean up the following quarter.
Yeah.
Do you have a structured quarterly pattern?
Not so much, definitely from a company revenue perspective, but just to give you an example, we were at sales kickoff, third week of January, we're all in Vegas, the drill. We, as soon as we got back, I scheduled for the next 2 weeks with all of I work with 8 different account executives that the way that we're structured is, they own the account, they own the procurement relationship, they own the contract, but I own the line of business. And so I need to make sure that my line of business is first and foremost on their minds as they're putting their plans together and helping them put their plans together. So I went off, my solution consultant and I teamed up, and we went and scheduled meetings with all 8 of my reps that I work with and their solution consultants. I went to every one of them face to face in the last 2 weeks, just completed that on Wednesday, and put the 2020 plan in front of them saying, here's all of our customers. Here's the total addressable market. Here's what they own, and here's what else, we could do for them and bring value to them. And then here's the ones I think we ought to go after first. And so I got them on a plan very, very quickly. And so I feel pretty good here, just mid-February, having wrapped that up, knowing exactly what we're going to go do, and also getting a deal closed 10 minutes before this interview started that I've been working on for a year was icing on the cake for me. So I feel like I have a good track forward.
Cool. And give us a sense of what do your deals look like from a economic standpoint?
So over history and not just current day, I work in the 6-figure, 7-figure deal sizes, 8-figure deal size, still working on getting that 9-figure. So that's pretty much the range. I have sold, it's always been software for me. It's been on-premise and software as a service combined over the years. And what's interesting is when I worked at GE, it was literally on the tail end of the time sharing days. So I started off in software as a service and cloud without even defining it at the time. Did that first before I ever sold on-premise, and then obviously went back to cloud. So I've structured all kinds of deals, multi-year contracts, pretty high numbers of ACV, multiple products bundled together, package solutions.
And who do you call on? Who's the person that makes either the usage decision or the economic decision?
Where I am at today is a combination of the CHRO, CIO, and CFO. Historically, prior to my life in selling into like HR and employee workflows, I spent many years selling into supply chain. That was always chief operating officer. But there is always a C-level executive tied to any of these deals and needs to be tied to any of these deals. The deals that I have experienced don't get done below VP.
Right. Yeah. Certainly, pretty much anything over 50K has to go up to them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Very few salespeople know that, but that's a pretty well kept secret. And what do you see as your differentiator from other reps?
So it's really in my approach. Not only do I, kind of have a structured approach towards the territory and towards my business, I have a structured approach to every call. And so, business buyers, because I sell to the business, they don't know how to buy software. They don't buy software for a living. They want to they solve business problems for a living. So they don't necessarily always know what the next step is. They may think the next step is 3 more demos, but really the next step is to move into a business value exercise once they're excited and hooked about what you offer. In previous roles, I was always one of those salesperson types that did not want to demo too soon. You don't want to, give away all your, value is the demonstration and price. And once that customer has those 2 things from you, that's why they disappear on you, because you've given them a demo that they don't need you anymore. So I will always want to be needed, and I want to help them through the process. And so in ServiceNow, because our product is so amazing, I do like to demo early now, whereas I may not have in the past, because that actually gets people hooked. They can really see what it is that we're doing. But then the very next step is business value. The next step is not price. And so I really work to walk a customer through and help them understand, because I know is when they're excited and when we're wrapping up that meeting, first or second meeting, they know that there's all these other things that they need to do. And the whirlwind is going through their head of, oh my God, implementation and contracts and how am I going to get this socialized, et cetera. And so I step them through that. And I do this as I close every meeting. I have a structured approach. I help them understand where we've come from so far. I check things off. I put dates on things. I start that timeline from when they want to be live. I work our way back.
There you go.
And I do it every single time. Yeah.
That's it. I heard another sales expert say you can't create urgency. I go, oh yeah, you can.
Yeah.
It's based off of their need.
That's right.
If a doctor says you need a heart operation, you don't do it on your timetable. You do it on the doctor's time.
That's right. That's right.
Doctor says, the next 2 hours you're on the table, or you might not make it the next week. And I think a lot of people go off of their quarterly time frame instead of the client's outcome time frame backwards.
That's right. And, case in point, I just had a deal close mid-quarter. It was that customer's timeline.
Yeah.
And our timeline was December 31st of last year. Their timeline was today.
Yeah. Our timeline's when we want the summer house.
That's right.
And you brought up a great point, because they don't know what has to get done.
That's right. They don't know. And if they don't know, that's how you end up with 15
surprises,
other things that didn't have to, that slowed the deal down by months and months and months. And, I also do things like, we'll record our demonstrations. They can share those demonstrations with the one person who was not available on that day. Yeah. We don't need to restart unless we think we're going to get specific insight or value out of that one person who hasn't seen it. I mean, we'll absolutely do it again. But if it's just somebody who needs to see it, that really isn't someone who can say yes, then they can watch a rerun, a review of what we've already done. So it's really worked well. I kind of really love Zoom now.
Yeah, so do I, obviously.
But of course, nothing beats face to face.
Right. Now, you brought up the business justification exercise. Is that what you call it? Or you?
Business value or just business case. People have different terms for it, and it's really it's what the customer is going to need internally to get
not just project. A quote.
That's right. It's the narrative around the value they're going to get, and it is the cost and the return on the investment.
That's it. And I think too many people just send a proposal, and it's just a bunch of line items and a cost, no benefit.
Right.
And an executive looks at that and goes, "Oh, you think it's a good idea? Here's my pile of good ideas over here."
That's right.
And it goes nowhere.
Right. And it's really important when you're selling to a line of business that's typically a cost center. So if you're selling into HR or IT or any type of back office operations, that's going to fall below in the priority list than any customer or revenue generating system. And, our client decision makers really need to have a great narrative. They need to have a great story, and they need to back it up with numbers, and the value needs to outweigh all the other priorities that are sitting in front of that executive for sign off.
Yeah. And is that how you keep the deal from getting stuck? Is that the major tool?
It's definitely, I think the structured approach, walking them through the steps, getting any of the parties, you have implementation as well. You have to get those parties involved as well. Keeping the pieces moving and giving them the value is what I have found gets things moving. But then it's also, I'm a very big believer in when you give value, you're going to ask for and get value. So a real key thing for me is, when I'm going to give something, I don't have a problem at all asking the hard questions. I'm going to ask for something in return, and both parties need to be accountable. And without all those things, that's how deals just go into slippage mode, no compelling event, no deadline, and they just perpetuate forever. Well, we'll get to it when we get to it.
And that's it, because they underestimate, because they probably have never done it, how long legal's going to take, how long security, whoever the naysayers or the people who have to approve this, regulatory, whatever it is, or even the board.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to help the customer know who's going to be involved, because for a business buyer who doesn't buy software every day for a living, they don't know that procurement might be a surprise for them, that's a step. Yeah. Legal reviewing T's and C's might be a surprise for them. They don't always know all the steps. They don't always know their own internal committees for budget and the process. So by just asking questions and helping them.
And that's it. And if you don't either push it, nudge it, and guide them, these little surprises come up at the worst possible time.
That's right.
I'm sure you've been in, the round table with the CEO and the C-level people, and all of a sudden they go, well, we need Harry to check this over.
Right.
And who's Harry?
Who's Harry? And Harry comes in and he's like, why wasn't I?
What's the rush?
Yes.
Right. I'm going on vacation.
That's right. Yeah. And knowing when those people are going on vacation is key too. I mean, especially when you're at the, the very typical closing time for our business, which is end of calendar year, holidays. You've always got to know like who's already left for Christmas and how can we track them down if we need to. And electronic signatures has been one of the greatest inventions of the modern world. It certainly
you don't miss the paper.
In those times, being able to send somebody an email for e-signature and forwarding it right to their executive, I think has really helped our business a lot. And
as far as working with the C-suite, what do you do differently than a B player?
There's times that, sometimes if you're quiet in meetings, at least in the beginning, because I'm in meetings sometimes where I'm leading them, but sometimes I'm sitting at the table and not necessarily up in front of the PowerPoint. You should just always, when you have something to say, like make it meaningful.
Yeah.
And when you do that, especially if you're silent for a little bit at the beginning of the meeting, I know I'm not very silent today, but if we were sitting in a meeting around a table, I'd really be taking in what people are saying. And I'd really find that moment in time to when I needed to say what I needed to say. And then I find just people listen. I mean, just speak with confidence, know your stuff. Yeah. If you don't know something, just say you don't know it. Don't pretend. Right. That's such a credibility building item. And I think people may underestimate that sometimes.
And I think a lot of salespeople feel obligated to talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And instead of either being quiet or asking great questions.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people like to talk.
That's right.
And they just need a little warm up. They need a little, get the ball rolling type conversation.
Right.
Oh, what do you believe about sales that most people don't?
That it's a real profession. There may not be a degree in it coming out of college, but it's a real profession. I think it's the best profession. It'll make you very, very successful if you figure out how to be good at it. I have the opportunity now these days to mentor a lot of early talents. I spent many years at SAP, where early talent is a real key differentiator for that company, and they would ask folks like myself and my peers to mentor the early talents coming out of their academy. And so I got some practice with that over time and giving folks different advice and just watching people grow and learn.
And what did you see them doing wrong most of the time? What were the common themes?
Just, a lot of the typical things that, you talk about on your podcast. And actually that's what interested me in continuing to watch all the things that I saw from you, because every one of them hit home. We've all lived and experienced that. But it's a profession, and I help a lot of these early talents understand that. Like sales is just not a job. It really is a way of life. I mean, I think I've been 90 some plus quarters now, quarter after quarter. I mean, you really do structure your life around being in sales. We don't always get to take vacations as traditionally as most. You can't really turn things off. There's just, too many people you have to let know you're on vacation. It really is a lifestyle, and it's a real profession. I'm very proud to be in it.
Yeah. It's not a personality type. It's a profession.
That's right. That's right.
Cool. Hey, I appreciate your time today. Where can people go to follow you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. So my link is, I guess, will be a part of this podcast.
It will.
But really on LinkedIn, I do post a lot on LinkedIn specifically. I'm not big on the private Facebook, Instagram, but from a professional perspective, I do click on a lot of insightful things on LinkedIn. So join me on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to link to some great, fabulous podcasts like this one from Brian. Thank you so much.
That is an example of a sales rep who knows their stuff. Now, executing it is the hard part. Knowing it's the easy part. And when you hear that, it's such a pleasant experience because so often I try to articulate what the complex sale is all about. But what you have to do is then apply it and prevent the bad things from happening. And that's what we teach in the course, Closing the Complex Sale. Now, what we're getting out of the one-on-ones is all these examples of individual sales. And some of the things are preventable. Others you have to work around. But there's these classic traps that we fall into. And what you have to do is get it out of your head and into either a computer, a whiteboard, paper, whatever works for you. And I show you how to do it. So the deliverable of the Closing the Complex Sale is your map to money, which is basically how your deal gets decomposed and how you can control it and drive it. I heard the other day on LinkedIn a sales trainer say, oh, you can't create urgency. Bullshit. Of course you can. You can't because you don't know how to sell and you only sold at one company before. What I teach is what I've learned over the years. And I got to tell you, sales isn't a destination. It is like most great professions, a practice, meaning that you never become perfect at it. It's evolving. Because in the last year, I think I've learned more in sales than my previous years altogether. That's how complicated it can be. Now, what we need to do is simplify it so that when we're in front of somebody, we can execute and focus on it. But I was talking to a boxer the other day. He's coming up on the show. And we were talking, he actually sparred with Mike Tyson. And what ends up happening is your brain goes into a certain mode which relies on your subconscious. But your subconscious can only execute what it's been trained over and over and over again. That's what we have to do in sales. We have to become so good at it, so many repetitions, so many case studies and instances, and be able to execute over and over again. Too many of us think, we just read a book and we know it. We watch a video, listen to a podcast, and we know it. You may know the words. You may even know the meaning of the words, but the execution of the task requires constant practice and repetition and review and polish over and over again. That's become pretty consistent from what I've heard of the great salespeople. And the ability to take feedback, to understand that it's always incomplete, no matter how well it was done. There's no 10.0s in sales. It could always be done better. And I use the word performance, and that brings up people's reactions. Because people don't think, people react. And people think, it's not a song and a dance. Well, not literally, but figuratively, it's a performance. How well you give the presentation, how well you communicate and listen, how well you get the other person to focus on what you want them to focus on. These are skills and distinctions. And the way to learn is to talk through it, see how other people are doing it, be exposed to as many good cases as possible, understand how certain things become better. And that's what I'm trying to get done in the course, because it's not just me talking about what works. It's me talking with you. It's other people. And what's magic that's happening on the office hours is people are sharing experiences, perspectives, because there is no right and wrong. It's just better and better. And that's what we're trying to get, expose people to think differently about their deals, because you're either going to win or you're going to lose. And if you lose, there's no commission. You might have a base salary, but that's not why we're here. We're here to make the big deals and to sell a lot and make a lot of money. So if you want to learn more about the courses, go to b2brevenue.com. There's two major ones. Solve the key problems today. Start the conversation, get the meeting, which focuses on how to develop organic conversations that turn into business conversations. The pitch has its place, but until people know, like, and trust you, don't want to hear it. It's not gimmicky. It's science-based on how strangers become business people, how to communicate with a stranger to make them want to talk with you instead of have to talk with you. And it's not cold calling or gimmicky. It's just natural. And what people are getting out of it is, this doesn't seem like selling. That's the good part, because there's no rejection. If you approach people the right way, there's no rejection. At worst, there's ignorance. How bad can that be? So go to b2brevenue.com. You can schedule a time to talk it over with me. I've got most of the frequently asked questions in the show notes, as well as an email sample of how to get your manager to pay for it. But I really price them for the individual. I don't have companies coming into the course, only individuals. And sales is a performance profession. So I teach you how the game is played and then how to perform the game every time. That's it. We'll see you next time. I also put these up on YouTube in video format if you'd like to watch them on video. So you get to see the person's expressions. And this one you might, because I think we had such a great interaction and it was so content focused, meaning that it was just pure gold. We'll see you next time. Make sure you're checking out the other two podcasts, The Brutal Truth About the B2B Revenue Leadership Show and Sales Questions, Brutally Honest Answers. If you see my stuff on LinkedIn, put a little comment, a little, hey, hi, how you doing there, Brian? Also, a like, comment, and a share is always appreciated. I also have company pages for all the podcasts. Make sure you follow them. We'll see you next time.